Okay, very good, thank you.
Let me just check. All right, perfect. Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Scott. My name is Kevin Avelino. Hopefully I'm not too loud. But yes, I am not as young as I look. I look like I'm 15, 13, but I'm actually 19. I turned 19 almost 2 weeks ago. So yeah, that was pretty recent. But yes, thank you for the introduction. My name is Kevin Avelino Hill. Remember the Avelino part, because we'll get into that. And so, yes, I also help run an ostrich ranch. Now we're away from here. And the name of this ranch is called Untitled Chapter. And for those who need help in Spanish, Untitled Chapter means the den or the nest of the ostrich. And there's a reason why we called it that. So the name of the ranch has a main cause, which is we live in Yucatan, right? There's cenotes everywhere. A cenote, what is a cenote? A giant cave. So there are ostriches, giant birds. What do giant birds make? Giant eggs. So we thought, we have a cenote, we have giant birds. What if we just call it Untitled? So it makes sense with the place where we come from Yucatan, and the size of the ostrich. Untitled. And I mentioned my last name is Avelino. The first syllable is Ave. Can anybody tell me here what does Ave mean in Spanish? Anybody can tell me what wings an ostrich feather. So put your thinking caps on. What does Ave mean in Spanish? Can anybody in the audience tell me, please? Ave. Bird. Bird. Who said that? Everybody, woo! Okay, you not right now, but on the show us. But yeah, Ave means bird. And we have a giant bird farm, Avestruz, even that rhymes with my last name. Avestruz Avelino. I also mentioned my other last name is Hill, which is gill, like a fish. And this farm is located 15 minutes away from San Crisanto or Tochak Beach. So a farm close to the ocean, Hill or gill, Avelino, bird, ostrich. So that's the name of the ranch. We do tours as well. And let's get into it. So I mentioned my name is Kevin Avelino. The story of Untitled Chapter is really an immigration story. It's a story of the American dream. And well, that's me in the middle. Hopefully I still look like him. But that's me. That was 2 years ago. And the actual owners of the ranch, I'm just the future of the ranch, the future owner of the ranch. Hopefully I'm gonna get the largest percentage. But the actual owner are my parents right there, on the right and on the left of me. On the right, I think, yeah, is my father, Cristobal Avelino Perez. And he's my dad. And on the left is my mother, Irma Gil Becerril. So a little backstory on them. So my dad is from the Mexico state called Puebla, which is right next to Mexico City. And Mexico City is where my mother is from. And so the story goes, they met in the 1990s in Mexico City. And my dad said, we should go to the States. You know what? I haven't been there, but it seems pretty cool. And my mom who hasn't had a child yet, well, I guess we can afford to go there. I mean, I don't have any responsibilities. And 2002, I came out. I was born. And they decided, well, we're already here in the US, specifically California. And they said, well, let's stay here. Let's see what this American dream is all about, right? And well, they had me. I'm the oldest. I'm 19 years old. My siblings are on the left. That's the youngest. His name is Stephen Avelino Hill as well. He is 13. Just got into high school. And on my right is the second oldest, Christopher Avelino Hill, which are all going to be the future owners of the ranch. But yeah, that's the founders. That's the people who had the idea. And remember this, my dad is the crazy one in here. He said, let's go to America for fun. Remember, he has a lot more crazy ideas. That's also, I mentioned I'm from California. Remember that part. So here's a video of you guys, a video of the ranch so you guys could understand what we're talking about. Let's see if it works. Let's see. All right. Move this thing out of the way. All right. As you can see here is a jungle, and giant birds in their pen. And I guess you can see a few people over there walking. Those are actually my aunt's side of the family who's in charge of operations here in Merida. And I say that because my parents, the founders, never set foot in this peninsula. They said, let's start an ostrich ranch here in Yucatan. I've never been here. I've never raised an ostrich, but let's do it. And I'm here, but they're not. And yeah, this is a 10-hectare ranch, an hour away from Merida, or 15 minutes away from San Crisanto Beach. Yeah, it's huge. On the left side, you can see it, I think pens. And those pens belong to the reproducers that we have. But I'm going to get into them. I will get into them very shortly. Yeah. Perfect. So I mentioned this is an immigration story. They met in Mexico City, and I was born in California, LA. All right. So I think we talked about that. And I really emphasize I'm from California because, yeah, sure, I lived my entire life there for the last 18 years. This is my first year in Mexico, fully. Some of you guys may be more Mexican than me because you stayed longer in Mexico than I have ever been. But I mentioned I'm from California because, yes, we lived through crazy wildfires in California. Every other year, it would be the one in NorCal, the one in SoCal. You'd be driving down the freeway and you would see these fires and it was just so depressing. And this is around 2015, 2016. Keep in mind, this ranch is around 3 years old. So we saw all this forest fire. We were just deeply saddened. And my parents at the time, they just sold their second house. And they said, well, man, what am I going to do with all this money? I don't want to buy another house. God, I don't want to go to Mexico still. But I always wanted a ranch because my parents grew up below the poverty line. They grew up with 13 brothers. And they had to start working at 13 years old. So they didn't have the best life. But they always had that dream of opening a ranch. But after seeing the effects of climate change, they really thought to themselves, well, what cows do, they're really bad for the environment. All the methane they produce and let out into the atmospheres. Who causes this? Same thing with chickens, the amount of chickens and the resources they consume, all the resources that go into our food is just so immense and uncontrolled that results in this happening every year in California. And so after much and much research, we found one animal that wastes 80% less water than a cow, uses 70% less land than a cow, and eats 60% less food than a cow to make the same kilogram of meat. And that was the ostrich. And once he found that out, he said, yo, let's buy a couple of ostriches, even though I've never met one. And my mother said, are you crazy? As anyone should. I mean, these things are living dinosaurs over here. And you want to buy 12 of them, and where are we going to put them? And so this is where we go back into the immigration story. They've always wanted to come back to Mexico, but getting your U.S. citizenship in the U.S. is a process. It takes almost a decade to go through that process. And my parents, well, specifically my dad, he has a brother or my uncle in the military. He's a colonel right now. And he was deployed down here to Merida 3 years ago. And he called my dad and he said, hey, Merida is paradise. No crime, always warm, close to the beach. Come on, you gotta buy something down here. And my dad was thinking about it. Well, I did just sell a house. I probably should do something with this money. And then my mom resisting. Like, no, we've never been to Yucatan. I have no idea what's over there. But after much talking about, well, we want a ranch anyways. We don't want it in the States. because we have no family there. And we also don't want it in Mexico because Mexico is not the safest place in Mexico City. And so, according to my uncle's advice, what he told us about Merida, about Yucatan, he said, well, that's the perfect environment to start a ranch filled with ostriches. And so that's what we did. We bought a 10-acre ranch in a pueblo called Sinanche. And that was 3 years ago. And we started with 12 chicks from Guadalajara. And 3 years have gone by. And we have over 50 of them. And here are some examples of why we don't want to consume beef. I mean, if cows had their own nation, they would be the third largest emitter of CO2, of greenhouse gases. And then just think about it. You have to slaughter a cow. That costs electricity, a lot of electricity. That's a lot of meat, a lot of bones to process. The amount of fertilizer they produce, once it starts raining, all that fertilizer, all that nitrogen in the fertilizer will run off into rivers. And if you want to do that in Yucatan, imagine we have cenotes here, right? If any of that nitrogen gets into the cenote waterways and starts creating algae, toxic algae, to the point where you can't even swim in the cenote water because it's filled with algae, that'd be disastrous. And that's why also in the region we don't have much cows. That's why the Yucatecan population eats pork and pig, because they don't produce as much fertilizer. That's why we don't have carne asada tacos. And I really miss my carne asada tacos. But luckily I have the ostrich for me because they have red meat, just like a cow. But what even is an ostrich, first of all? It's not a dinosaur. It's not a bird that can fly. It's a rat-eye. That's the name of the family it belongs to. So what is a rat-eye specifically? It's not a rat. But a rat-eye simply is a bird that cannot fly. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, Kevin, the penguin can't fly. Where's the penguin on this board? And there is a simple reason why the penguin is not included in this family. So here's a skeleton of an ostrich. You can look here. It's flat. It looks like our rib cage. It's flat. And if you can notice down there seems to be like a bulge right between its chest. And that is more of a callus that it develops over time. And that's also a defense strategy. And the way it defends itself using that bulge, it's a callus. It first bumps its head or chest into its enemy and kicks it. And with that kick, it has enough force to kill one lion in one blow. So it's extremely independent, but it lives in herds. But remember that part. The chest is flat. Here is a bird. Here's a skeleton of a flying bird. You guys might notice there's like a fin. There's a fin in the middle of that skeleton. That is called a keel. Just like on a boat, you have a keel. And that is the only reason why all these rat-eyes cannot fly, because they don't have that keel. The keel allows every bird to maintain equilibrium while they fly. And we were talking about penguins, and here's another example of a hummingbird. This also has a keel. I would almost say it's an opposite of an ostrich. It's small, can fly, and has the smallest eggs on the planet. So this is more clearly defined. You can see it's right in the middle, and that's what allows it to maintain such proper position midway in flight. Unlike the penguin does have a keel. The keel is there, but it's not like the hummingbird example I just showed you. It's flat on the sides and the center, but it still has a keel. And if you look when a penguin swims, it's like flying underwater. So that's why it still has a keel, but it can't fly. And simply because it doesn't have a keel, it's not in a rat-eye family. And well, now I'll explain to you what a rat-eye is. Let's talk about a few of the rat-eyes that used to exist. So if it weren't for us, we would not, I would not have an ostrich ranch. We would have an elephant bird ranch. The elephant bird ranch, the elephant bird is the largest bird that ever existed that could not fly. It used to live in Madagascar, and we killed it off. It was our ancestors in Madagascar that killed the entire population. And I want to show you the reason why they killed them off. The eggs are huge. One ostrich egg is equivalent to 24 chicken eggs. Does anybody want to guess for an ostrich feather? How much is an elephant bird equivalent to in chicken eggs? Does anybody want to take a guess? An ostrich egg is equal to 24. An elephant bird is equal to, who said 100? Woo! You're the closest. It is 124. 124 chicken eggs. And imagine that. if you're a hunter back then, you see one of these things, well, that's enough to feed your whole village for a week. And so naturally, our ancestors will decide to kill them all off entirely because we still haven't invented farming yet. And so they were killed off. And that's why we have ostriches. And that's why I farm ostriches, because they don't exist. And the next relative is the kiwi. This is the right picture of a kiwi. If a kiwi is a small chicken, or it looks like a chicken, it's the size of a chicken. But I want to talk about something crazy about the kiwi that relates to the ostrich. So we all know the ostrich egg is the largest in the world. I'm going to pass this around so you guys could observe it. You guys want to pass it around? Thank you. So you can see how large it is. The ostrich egg, it may be the largest in the world, but it technically is a lot because the kiwi, if you compare the ostrich egg to the mother, its weight and size, the ostrich egg is actually the smallest egg out of the entire bird family. The ostrich egg, I repeat, is the smallest egg compared to its mother because this is a kiwi egg. The kiwi egg takes up almost 25% of its body weight and size. Just imagine that. That's like a human having 12 babies inside them. And it's insane. Yeah, it's amazing. So yeah, the ostrich egg may be the largest visual-wise. However, if you compare it to its mother's body, size, and weight, it's actually the smallest. That belongs to the queen, the kiwi. Here's another image so you guys can compare. The kiwi next to an ostrich egg. So I'm not that far off. I want to say it's 2/3 of the size of an ostrich egg is around there. So yeah, that's how crazy these birds are. I would probably farm kiwi if it weren't for the fact that they were endangered and illegal to move around. But yes, these are actually endangered. The kiwis are native from New Zealand, but ever since cats got introduced and other predators that don't belong in New Zealand, well, they're easy pickings. They can't fly. They can't run as fast as an ostrich. They have no defense like an ostrich. Easy pickings. And somebody out here asked me, aren't emus and ostriches pretty similar? I mean, they look the same, it's just a smaller version of it. And I talked about the elephant bird and the kiwi so far. And if you look here, all these rat-eyes live below the equator. And we're going to get into that reason why. However, we have the tinamou in South America with the lesser tinamou beside it. We have the ostrich in Africa and the elephant bird that's extinct in Madagascar. We have the kiwi in New Zealand, and we have the moa, the second largest bird that also live. That's in New Zealand. We have the emu in Australia, and we have the cassowary. The cassowary is probably the scariest bird out of all these. It has 3-inch claws, and it will attack you just like a velociraptor in Jurassic Park. It's going to jump at you, straight into your organs. It's scary. I mean, people think ostriches are scary, but they're really not. Cassowaries, they are small, but man, they are killers. Man, those guys scare me. But yeah, as you can see, here are some lines that connect these birds together. And you can see the ostrich and the elephant bird don't connect. And there is a reason why, because, ostriches and elephant birds, they're essentially on the same continent. They should be like brothers, DNA-wise. However, if you look at their DNA, they are more like cousins than brothers. And the kiwi is more of a brother to the elephant bird. And the kiwi should be more like a brother to the moa, which is in the same continent. But the moa is more like a brother to the tinamou in South America. So science is like, how do you explain this? I mean, they live on the same continent, but why aren't they closely related DNA-wise? And there was once a theory that explains all of this. The main theory of how we got all these giant non-flying birds was Noah's Ark. It's a funny name for a theory, Noah's Ark. And the main reason for that theory to explain why these birds don't exist is because back when supercontinents used to be a thing, for example, Pangea, the theory was that there was just one giant flying, non-flying bird, and once the continent split, they all divergently evolved into all these species we have today. But if that were the case, why does the ostrich relate much to the elephant bird, and why does the emu relate much to the ostrich? And why doesn't the kiwi relate to the moa if they live on the same continent? That makes absolutely no sense, as they share one common ancestor. But there was a new theory. I mean, there was a new discovery recently, back in the 1970s, that made sense of all of this. So there actually wasn't one common ancestor, which resolves why all these birds aren't really closely related. The reason why they're not really closely related is because they all share different common ancestors that could fly. And that common ancestor came from North America. And it was about the size of a pigeon, honestly, but due to its size, it was able to travel to South America, Africa, and Australia in that region. And because of their ability to fly, they were able to reproduce there in South America and fly all the way there to New Zealand. Well, I'm not sure if any bird can fly all the way there, but stops along the way. Each bird would evolve divergently, or technically it's convergently, because they're from different ancestors, however they develop similar traits. So a bird, the common ancestor was from North America. It flew to all these continents, but they're similar to the North America bird. And that's why you get these birds in South America that relate to the ones in New Zealand, because a bird that could fly and share the same ancestor evolved into two different birds. And there was one bird that could fly and evolved into the kiwi and one to the moa bird. And there was one bird that evolved into the ostrich. And the ostrich is the craziest out of all of these birds because DNA-wise, all the ostrich, I said the ostrich is not like a brother to the elephant bird in Madagascar. The ostrich is more like a distant cousin to all of these other birds because the ostrich separated from the red-eyed family of a common ancestor 100 million years ago. So that's why they're so distinct. I think we're going to get into the claws of an ostrich in the anatomy more to depth. But that's the history of rabbits, how we got these birds, how we got these giant birds. Now I want to talk about our history with these giant birds. So ostriches. I think you guys have all seen these pictures of Victorian ladies and their fashion giant ostrich feathers. So yeah, that was the thing. Well, we have a lot more history with them. We found cave paintings dating back to 3000 BC of us hunting and killing ostriches. We have the ostrich is mentioned 5 times in the Bible. The ostrich was used as cups for cavemen to drink water out of. The ostrich eggs were used as gifts for nobles, kings, and queens back then during the medieval time. And now we get to the Victorian times, the 1800s, and we get the fashion. And there was so much demand for these feathers. They killed up to 98% of the population. 98%. We almost killed another giant bird. We killed the moa and we killed the elephant bird, which were the biggest birds until we killed them. Ostrich was next on that list. But because there was so much demand, that's why the first ostrich farms came into existence. That's when the first ostrich farm opened in 1865 to combat this extinction of so much demand for fashion. And there was just so much demand for these feathers that this used to be worth gold. You could trade me a bar of gold for this, and I would accept it. But sadly, those times are gone. Man, I'm not trying to kill these things to make profit, but man, I still wish it was worth gold. I'm gonna pass this around so you guys can feel. So you guys can feel what people were killing. They were trading gold and diamonds for. These things were rare. But ostrich farms came into existence in 1865 to combat this. And there actually used to be 3 species of ostrich. There was red, blue, and Arabian ostrich. The Arabian ostrich is gone. We killed that one entirely. That species is gone. We wiped off the earth. Yeah, wiped off the earth. And after that, the first, ostrich farms came into being. And here's one in captivity. Because they have become so accustomed to us, they will actually do their breeding against towards humans because they have imprinted on humans. And yeah, that's your breeding dance. How do I laugh at that? Man. I had a few people visit the ranch, and one of them just started doing that dance, and man, he was really confident about it. There we go. Let's go. And after the first ostrich ranches were developed, 1860, and keep in mind, these were also all established in Africa. And time passed by, 1950s came and went, and during the 1950s was when new demand came for the ostrich. It was leather now. Leather was a hot commodity now for ostrich. Leather was, I said 1950s, so this is right after World War II. People came out of the war, the economy was going insane. We had people with so much money to waste. So leather became a giant thing, and it became so popular that during the 1990s, the African government said, okay, no more exports of ostrich products, no more. It was for political issues at the time, but because of that single event in 1990 was the reason why ostrich farms became international. We got some in South America, we got some in Los Angeles, which I visited. We have some in Utah, we have some in Vietnam, we have some basically everywhere, ever since 1990, because there was still so much demand for the ostrich. And the African government said no more exports to the world. Well, the only choice left was let's make ostrich farms but outside Africa. And this is a picture of our farm an hour away from here. So as you can see here, I can tell you a lot about the ostrich. So far, you can tell it's a herbivore. They usually eat plants. Second thing, this ostrich looks like it's possessed. It's not possessed. Actually, the funny thing is that we do have a spirit on the ranch. I don't know if you guys have heard of Alusha. Maybe you guys have lived here long enough to heard about Alusha. Yeah, we do have an Alusha on the ranch. I don't want to get off topic and explain the concept, but yeah, we do have a spirit on the ranch, and that is not possessing the ostrich. Actually, that is its third eyelid. That's piece of skin you see right there is its third eyelid. Ostriches have three eyelids due to the fact when they run so fast in the desert. You don't need only two, you need three if you're going 50 miles per hour. You get a bug in your eye, you get a sand in your eye. You need something to work at all times. And so they evolved to have three eyelids. Another thing I can tell you, this ostrich over here that's opening its beak, it's got no teeth. So if I said ostriches don't really do anything. I mean, I'm more scared of my chihuahua than I am an ostrich. When an ostrich come over and bite me, it's like a pinch, not really much because they have no teeth. So, I mean, a bite from a chihuahua scares me more than a bite from an ostrich. And because they don't have any teeth, they have, instead of gizzard, an organ mostly found in birds, like chickens, because chickens also don't have teeth. And what a gizzard is an organ that helps break down food using stones. Fun fact, each ostrich, an adult ostrich, has 1 kilo of pure stones in its gizzard just to break down food. So imagine that, you process an ostrich and you pure Morocco inside. Man, it's insane. And one more thing I can tell you about this ostrich, well, at least according to the pictures, are the lashes. The lashes are valuable, extremely valuable for cosmetic reasons. They're not used for fake eyelashes, they're mostly used for brushes. And in this picture, you can see all these ostriches look the same color. And these are yearlings. They have yet to turn 1 year old. And so they still haven't developed into their signature black and white or gray and brown colors. The black and white colors, which are usually known, are the male. The gray and brown ones are the female. And so that's what I can tell you from that picture. And they're not so different from us anatomy-wise. There's their hip, it's actually on their back. Eyebrows, right here. Knees, it's actually all the way on top. And their ankle, midway, just like us. But if you notice, they're on their tiptoe. We don't run on our tiptoes because that's extremely uncomfortable and we wouldn't get anywhere. And the reason why they use their tiptoes is their claws. Their claws are around 3 inches, but man, it's like a glass dagger. That thing, the way they kill, well, their enemies is that first, I explained they push them to the ground using their chest, their callus. Once they're on the ground, they strike with their claw. And once they have their claw inside their enemy, they go down and it rips them into shreds. And that's crazy. Most of our ostriches are blue ostriches, and those are the ostriches that were found in Africa 200 years ago. So these guys are pretty domesticated towards us. I mean, I'm more scared that they'll eat my salad more than they'll kick me in the gut. But yeah, that's why they run on their tiptoes. They only have 2 toes. They're the only bird on the planet to have 2 toes as well. So yeah, they have the reason why they run on their tiptoes is because they hang onto the ground and they launch themselves, just like a sprinter at the beginning of a marathon. It's always a launch. So they're basically just sprinting the entire way they can do it for 40 minutes and maintain a speed of 50 miles per hour. So that's why they run their tiptoes, because the claw allows them to keep maintaining that traction. And here's a picture of the ranch. When I told you in the middle of the jungle, it is in the middle of the jungle. I mean, you go down a dirt road and you find that. I mean, there's a funny story about this picture, actually. Since we don't have sound, I wish I could show you the mating call of an ostrich. It sounds like somebody revving up their car, or it sounds like a lion's roar. And so at night you hear boom, boom, and people who live nearby us, they don't know we have an ostrich ranch. And these are hunters, they go out and kill deer. And so one time we had an incident where they wandered out here and you hear boom. These people ran for their lives, screaming, because they thought it was a mountain lion. They thought it was a panther. They thought it was a puma. And well, you don't want to find puma at night here. But no, that's the sound they make. These ostriches are absolutely crazy. Here's one doing their booming sound. There's no audio, but there it goes. They do woo, woo. That's how it sounds there. And that's usually when they initiate breeding or when they feel threatened. And yeah, you can see they don't sing like other birds. They expand their neck to do that sound. Woo, and that's the sound you get. And that's a red ostrich. I mentioned we have blues. The reds are better for meat. The only trade-off is that they're not as domesticated. Therefore, they are a lot more easier to aggravate. They're extremely territorial, but they do weigh larger and they do run faster and they do grow taller than a blue. But we're not interested in meat production. And we also care about the safety of our employees, so we don't have red ostriches at the ranch. I know we saw it. And so here are the babies, here are the chicks. Everybody loves the chicks. This is a picture of my brother Steven when he was here a few months ago. And yeah, this is our second batch of chicks we had. And you can tell they're really different from the adults. The adult is, well, solid colors, black, white, or gray, brown. The chick has almost like a cheetah pattern on its neck. Meanwhile, its adult form also tells us its gender. Because if you look here, these two chicks look identical. And we have to sex them. And the way sexting goes with any type of bird, because they don't have the same organs as us. Well, actually, that's a lie. These birds are the only birds that have a penis, unlike most other birds. These grow up to half a meter, and it's insane. But you have to sex them as a chick, get their cloaca, it's a small hole, and then you have to. It's not a pleasant process, but you have to basically expose it over and see if it has a little piece of skin coming out, which is its penis, or if it's a grill. And after that is found out, we can separate them. But yeah, that's a difficult thing about having chicks. Sexting them is not our favorite process, but it is helpful in helping them, giving them the right nutrients and supplements that they need. And as you can look here, you can see the claw as well. And that claw will grow up to 4 inches. And right there, it's a few centimeters.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
You said you separate them.
Correct.
As soon as you identify, you separate, and they're separated forever?
No, they're separated for marketing purposes. Because we have people who are really interested in chicks, and they ask us, hey, do you have females? Do you have males? And so after we sex them, we put them into these different groups. So if anybody calls and says, hey, do you have female chicks or male chicks? And we tell them, yeah, we do. And then it makes the process a lot easier. Because these things grow up fast. These things stay this size for not more than a month. Once a month passes, they are yay big. And so having to sex a bird the size of a giant turkey, basically, it's going to be a lot harder. And then once you go past a month, we're talking 3 months, they're about this size. So, we have to do the process here so we can separate them. And once we know their sex, we give them tags like in this picture, so they're easily identifiable, so now we can mix them in together. And here's the process of my uncle getting an egg. It was a few months ago. So you can see here, he's going into their nest area. He's about to crouch down. There's an ostrich crouching down behind there. I wish it wasn't so shaky, but the ostrich is distracted and he just goes in and takes it. And since the ostriches know him by now, we all know the process. It's everyday life for them. And the crazy thing about an ostrich egg fresh out of the oven is it is like fresh out of the oven. Once I got it, that thing was like holding a warm pizza. It's insane. I thought someone cooked it. But these were just laid less than 24 hours ago when I took this video. And so these things are straight fresh out of the oven. Let's go. And here's our incubator that we use. These are actually chicken incubators that we use at the ranch. They're not the same. The only difference between the incubators we use and the chicken one is really the settings and the size of the container. So all these containers had to be 3D printed to the size of an ostrich egg, and the settings had to be changed as well. And you can see here we have around 3 of them, and most of these are empty. This was at the beginning of the season. And yeah, it's not really different from incubating a chicken egg. You put them in there, And the only difference between a chicken and an ostrich incubation is really the time. The time for a chicken is less than a month. Ostrich takes around 2 months to incubate. And so after we've got them, we clean them, we desanitize them, they're in there for 2 months. And here's a video of the cleaning process after we pick them up from the floor. They're clean with first regular water, and after that we use UV light to get rid of all the bacteria. After UV lights, we use oxygenated water, and then once that process is done, we put them into the incubator, and that incubator, that's a room, I think it's a smaller room, half the size of this room, I think. Oh no, yeah, it's about the size of this room. And it's filled with ACs. There's ACs on every side. There's dehumidifiers on each side of the wall. And the reason why we have that is because, yeah, sure, these birds are from Africa. We have similar climate. The problem is the humidity. Ostriches in Africa grow smaller than our ostriches here in Yucatan. However, our egg percentage that actually survive towards hatching is almost 50%. So we put eggs in here, and 50% of them will actually hatch. And that is due to the humidity. If we didn't have ACs, our percentage would probably go down to mid-20s, or even lower than mid-20s. And that's really the main problem with having an ostrich ranch here is the humidity. It really affects the incubation process. I wish I could tell you more about that because I'm not there 24/7, but yeah, that's the main problem about incubation is the humidity. However, I did mention African ostriches grow smaller, and our Yucatecan ostriches are the largest birds in the world compared to all other ostriches in not only the nation of Mexico, but the entire world. And really, we don't have a reason why. We really suspect it's the humidity that allows them to grow so large. When you think about it, they're from the desert. It's dry. They come here, humidity, water, and we give them the same diet as the ones in Guadalajara to the ones in California. So it's food-wise, it's not really different. Environment-wise, we highly suspect it's humidity. And well, I explained to you, humidity doesn't benefit us in the egg-laying situation, but actually, well, raising them, it benefits us a lot. All right. I don't know where that came up again, but here's a video of me feeding them. They're quite docile, really tame. I mean, they love being fed by people. And they really love being fed. You have to really hold on to that branch. All right, and now we get into the parts no one here has ever heard about ostriches. So this man over here, his name is Dr. Fujioka, I believe. And I actually got to meet him once in California. We were at the same ostrich ranch the same day. And well, he speaks Japanese, so it was kind of hard to communicate with him. But I'm a huge fan of his work because although he lives in Japan, he is making COVID-19 antibodies using the ostrich. And the way this works is that the ostrich has a crazy immune system. I don't know if you guys have ever heard about the shark's immune system. It's immune to almost all disease. That's why when you have fish farms and sometimes they get disease and they'll die, and some people actually farm sharks, it's really hard to get a shark sick. And the same concept applies to an ostrich. And it's really all due to the amount of blood cells it has. White blood cells are responsible for creating antibodies. And well, the ostrich has the highest amount out of all land mammals. So what he did really, well, how he even figured that out really was, he gave them all bird disease, like the bird flu, all those other bird diseases that killed off a whole bunch of chickens in other farms. He put them into, he injected all these ostriches with all these diseases. And he noticed that their feces contained 0% or no trace of that virus. And usually that's how viruses spread in chicken farms. Chickens will defecate in their small pens, that scat accumulates, the virus spreads even more. But these ostriches don't have zero virus in them, zero traces of it, and that stunned him. I mean, that made no sense. How could this is a bird? if a virus that affects a chicken, it should affect an ostrich. And what he did was, all right, that's strange. Let's take a look at the eggs. And what he found, that the ostrich eggs that are produced with ostriches that were infected with these diseases, they have antibodies of the disease he put in the ostrich. And what he did next was, all right, that's pretty strange. Let's put some dengue in this ostrich. All forms of dengue, especially the ones here in found in Yucatan, all the forms of dengue found in Yucatan were put into these ostriches, and all the eggs that came from that ostrich were all resistant to dengue. They all had antibodies. And just to think about, you put COVID-19 into an ostrich, creates antibodies. Put dengue into an ostrich, creates antibodies. We could put any virus into this ostrich and it would make antibodies 100% naturally. And that discovery is so crazy that he's actually working on human trials as we speak. And hopefully we can get an ostrich vaccine. But yeah, we're still in human trials so far. But I don't know when we're gonna have these ostrich vaccines. Probably 5 years from now, we should have some. But yeah, the fact that we can make antibodies out of any virus using an ostrich is just insane. And so now we get to the other crazy part, the food. Man, they made great food. These guys not only made great antibodies, great health products, fashion products, cosmetic products, they make great food. Okay, so does anybody want to guess? This is my favorite. Does anyone want to tell me if the left or the right is an ostrich or a chicken egg? Left or right? Does anybody want to guess which is the ostrich egg? Anybody want to guess? Left is ostrich?
Yellow.
Correct, it's the left. The left is the chicken, the ostrich. And we're going to show you a picture of how it looks when it's deviled, so you could understand why it's lighter. But look at this picture of these delicious hamburgers. Actually, got to try one. So which one is the beef one here? Anybody want to guess? Right or left? Which is the beef hamburger?
I'd say that's the beef.
All right.
Yes.
Any more guesses? All right.
I just thought it looked fattier.
Really? All right. Strange guess.
Wrong answer.
All those answers are wrong. Those are both ostrich burgers. Yeah, you were right. That was an ostrich burger. That was an ostrich burger you pointed at. That one's a beef burger from In-N-Out, from anyone from California. In-N-Out is the best burger place. Do not challenge me on that. But hamburger made out of ostrich and one made out of beef, you would not know the difference, just like you saw here. You did not know the difference. And if you tasted one, it's made out of red meat. Beef is red meat, ostrich is red meat. So if I were to give you one, you would not know the difference. And you also, another thing about the meat is that it has less than 1% cholesterol, which also is another benefit with the ostrich egg, less than 1% cholesterol. The red meat has hints of omega-3, which are good for brain sustenance. Meanwhile, the ostrich egg has 20% more vitamins than what a chicken egg is able to supply us with. So it's healthier for you, it's better for the environment, and even, once ostriches can become pretty popular, it could become cheaper than beef because it, wastes less water, wastes less food. So it's a great alternative. Here is a picture of birria. Does anybody want to guess which one is the beef and which one is the ostrich? This is not a trick one. This is not a trick question now. Piece on the right? All right, this right. Oh, this is the left.
Well, sort of.
Yeah, I don't think about it. Yeah. Yeah. He's on the right. He's actually right about that. This one on your left is the ostrich. It looks almost identical. Look, it's delicious. It's red meat. You can prepare it the same as beef. We have carne asada, we have birria, we have chouriços, mostly made out of beef as well. Well, we have barbacoa as well, which we made using ostrich meat. And yeah, I could give you a dish of tacos from Mexico City made out of beef, and then one out of ostrich, and you would not know the difference. All of these tacos are made using ostrich meat, all of them. And well, it's a great replacement health-wise and environmental-wise. And here's a deviled ostrich egg. As you can tell, it's white, just like a chicken egg. However, it's a tad bit translucent compared to a chicken egg. It's not as beaming white, but that's why it's listed when you cook it. For example, I brought ostrich egg for a brunch we had here at the library. I made it with longanisa, the type of chorizo. Everybody asked me, is that meat? Is that meat? Because when you cook an ostrich egg, yeah, it sure does look like a chicken egg, but if you add anything that has color, a salad, a meat, a bread, it will absorb the color of the meat or salad thing you're cooking it with. And once I cooked it, scrambled style, because scrambled looks like ground beef, it just everybody was asking me, is that ground beef? And no, it's scrambled ostrich egg with longanisa. But because it takes the color of longanisa, it looks like a bowl of longanisa, beef. So yeah, it's a tad bit translucent. Another one. So on your, who wants to guess? This one, ostrich or beef? Ostrich or beef? All right. All right. So yeah, on your guys is right. Ostrich. They look identical, but that's the way I had it a few days ago, and it was delicious. And yeah, this is the end of the presentation. But before we conclude, I want to give you guys a summary. So what did we talk about today? So we talked about the history of the ostrich, how the ostrich ranch got started, why we will raise ostriches, and really the benefits and why we should raise ostriches. As I showed you, we talked about the environment. They release a lot less methane, almost zero compared to a cow. Use 80% less water than a cow, 70% less food, 79% less land than a cow. So just that alone should be enough to change the ostrich. And then not including the health benefits, ostrich meat, less than 1% cholesterol, hints of omega-3. The ostrich egg, less than 1% cholesterol, 20% more vitamins in a chicken egg. Also, we're gonna have a taste, we're gonna taste some chicken, ostrich egg cake that I made using it. And you're gonna be able to tell the difference between a chicken and an ostrich egg's properties. And yeah, it's sustainable, ethical, environmentally friendly, and most important, it's the new frontier. I believe, just think about it. Projected demand for beef is going to be 300% by the year 2050, because there are just so many more people coming into the world, developing countries like China. India don't need much cow, but as time goes by, people will start naturally eating more beef. As more populations come out of poverty, people will start consuming more meat. And as I explained, beef is not the best thing to consume for the planet. And so that's why we're raising ostriches. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, question.
A couple, how long does it take you to get from the egg to selling?
So,